Here we see what is probably one of the most common graphs used in analytics. In the present form, it's what mathematicians call the Witch of Agnesi, or as it's better known, the probability curve. And this is the analysis of a closed system. And the best example of it would be the casino game of craps, where you have a pair of dice and the capability of making a point between 1 and 12. The most common point that can be made is 7, because there are 6 ways to make it, 6 combinations. And they are 1 and 6, 6 and 1, 2 and 5, 5 and 2, 4 and 3, and 3 and 4. Now as we come down, 8 on this side, 6 on the other, there are only 5 combinations. For 6, we have 1 and 5, 2 and 4, and the reverse of each, or 3 and 3. On the other side, we have 8, which is 6 and 2, 2 and 6, 3 and 5, 5 and 3, or 4 and 4. Now, as we progress down to the lower numbers here, each successively lower number has one less combination. So, and finally, we get down here to snake eyes, that's 2, only one combination, and likewise for 12. Now this is an analysis of the probability of a result among the equal possibility of the complete set of results. Of the 12, 7 is the most likely to occur. Now, in another application where which we would call the open set, this involves a population explosion, or the analysis of a population growth. And one example would be, say, take a sophomore class in high school and draw a curve depicting the height of all the boys in the class. Well, you wouldn't get this neat symmetrical figure. It would either be skewed to one side or the other, and they would have a lower limit of perhaps 5'2", and over here maybe 5'10" or 6. But the middle ground might not have an equal number of people at that median height, so the skew might be a tendency toward taller boys or shorter ones. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is to make the point that as the population expands, continues to expand, the extremes also expand, and they become wider. This whole figure becomes taller and yet wider. And this has to do with a point I'm going to make in the video when we get back to it. But for the time being, let's consider the same function, and that is to determine the height of the average human being. Well, that would be pretty hard to reckon with 6.5 billion, or what is it, 7 billion by now. I don't think anyone would live long enough to go around and measure the height of every human being on the face of the earth. But that's not irrelevant here. What is relevant is the expansion of the extremes. That not only would we have people of varying heights, over 6 feet, 5 feet, or somewhere in between. But then we would find very, very tiny people on the one hand, over here, and giants on this end. And if you'd like to get a sample of that while you're in YouTube, you might shift over to the search bucket, type in tiny people, and you'll see the tiniest people in the world. And then go to tall people, and you'll find the tallest man who ever lived. His name was Wadlow, and take a look at that. So, if we're through with that, well, let's go back to the... Hello again, and welcome back. Again, as always, I hope that this day finds you in good health and high spirits. And I hope you got something out of that little low-tech clip that started, that this video began with. It's pretty basic, and I wasn't really trying to insult anyone's intelligence. It's not my way, but just to spread the widest net possible and to make sure that we're all on the same page. But before going into that, I have received some comments on the material, especially regarding Noah's flood. That seems to be a problem. And one, I'd like to admonish one of my critics that calling me an idiot really doesn't help your argument at all. See, calling me an idiot fails on two grounds. First of all, it's supposed to be a secret. And secondly, it just means you got your projector turned on. So, just to keep you from maybe being seen in a bad light and having your criticism dismissed out of hand owing to these spurious personal attacks which any intelligent person can easily see through. It does bring up some interesting points. As I mentioned, some 25 years ago, I was a teacher for about 3 years, actually a trainer. And I taught folks how to program computers, I taught accounting, systems design, and logic. And a lot of this is heavily grounded in mathematics. And I always insisted that my classes ask questions. Don't take my word for anything. And sometimes I'd bushwhack them. I mean, really. I remember once when I was teaching the number systems, it's a general analysis of all number systems. And any number system is really a set of values based on a single value called a base that's raised to successive integral exponents, that is, whole number exponents. And in any number system, the rightmost digit is raised to the power 0. And anything raised to the 0 power is 1. And of course, a lot of the kids learned that in high school, but these were not kids, these were adults. And so I made mention of that fact, and everyone agreed, oh yes, anything raised to the 0 power is one. And then I turned the tables and asked them, who can tell me why that's true? And I looked out over a sea of blank stares. They had no idea. So I showed them. And I made the point again that if you let something pass without question, something that you accept without understanding why or knowing the story behind it, then you are shortchanging yourself and you're letting me get away without doing my job to the best of my ability. So the same holds true. Criticisms, fine. Now, of course, there is it seemed that the controversy revolved around the question whether Noah's flood, this alleged flood, was a worldwide event. In other words, was the whole world flooded? Well, in order for that to happen, the seafloor would have to rise to the surface, and all the mountains and hills and high ground would have to flatten out, and I doubt that the Creator has an interest in such a convenient adjustments of that kind. But Genesis 6, verse 17, makes it clear that God, whom the Bible writers used like a ventriloquist's dummy, putting words in his mouth, concluded with that verse with the statement that everything that is in the earth shall die. Well, a shortcut to stupidity is intelligence without common sense or without awareness. And the answer is really quite simple. Now, our present day concern, it's, by the way, it's scandalously fraudulent, but it's global warming. Of course, back in the late 90s, our major concern was that we were entering a new ice age. So this serves as a commentary about the idiots who occupy high places and how little they truly know. But it's to keep things frightened and confused, and so that you can be manipulated more easily. But suppose now that our present civilization worldwide was destroyed by some global calamity. And now here we are, 3,000 years from now, the descendants of the few survivors of this cataclysm, and we're doing our archaeology, and we come across a statement that mentions global warming. The whole world warmed up, or that's what it would seem like. But even now, with global warming, is it cold? Is it warm everywhere in the world? Outside my window right now, the temperature is 42 degrees. Not quite teeth-chattering cold yet, but I don't think I'll go out sunning today. So the natural tendency is to generalize something specific. And so much for that. Now, getting back to the clip, the purpose of that was to focus on the distribution chart rather than the probabilities graph. Especially with regard to the growing or the phenomena of growing population. That as the amplitude of that curve rises, so too do the extremes spread out. And if you looked up, we were talking about average height, the height of people in a closed set or in a wide open set such as the global population, we found that this is true at the low end. If you looked up tiny people, you have people that are about 2.5 feet tall. Mature people who are that little, tiny. And if you typed in tall people, then you discovered one man who lived in the earlier part of the century from into the, he died in 1940. And I forgot what his name is now. 8 feet 11, 1 inch short of 9 feet tall. And here we have people scratching themselves, getting dandruff all over the floor, wondering about, well, were there giants in biblical times? Yeah, probably. But that's not the point. There are giants today. So, but I wasn't, the importance of the article, however, is not about height. Because remember, Genesis 6 begins with the statement, when the sons of God, Christ, from the city of heaven, a celestial ark, saw the daughters of men that they were fair, took unto themselves such as they chose as wives, and went into them and bare children. Well, the question is, there's two questions actually. From where do we get our tragic comic nature? That divided soul that on the one hand seeks godliness and spiritual ascendance, and on the other hand demonstrates baseness and animal instincts, what we call the old Adam. Well, here's where it started. The lordly fathers and the earthly mothers, who were genetically engineered from a native species of the world, elevated to the physical profile of the lords so that they could have children, to have fruitful relations, and thereby freshen their gene pool. And we are the descendants of that original, or those original unions. So it's not about the height, but talking about instead the soulic quantity, the bias. And if you recall, the endless process of creation, as we discussed, begins with a beam of light that streaks through the universe at the speed of light, because the only thing that can travel at the speed of light is light, and it's pure energy according to E equals mc squared, and it probably buzzes along at speed of light, for probably several billion years until all that gravity, the surrounding gravitational influences, causes it to slow down. And when it slows down, there's a slight transformation. It loses some of its energy, not by deprivation, but actually by a change, such as water becomes ice if it's too cold. The lost vibrant energy becomes what we call mass. And as the general law of nature, the all-subsuming law of nature, states that energy is all there is and only wishes to combine with itself, and that it is present in two conditions, imbalance and non-uniformity, but two conditions which it continually strives to achieve. And it always overshoots the mark. That's why, as long as it keeps overshooting the mark, and we stays out of balance and non-uniform, then the universe will continue to exist forever and ever, as it has always existed. No Big Bang, sorry. Anyway, since an energy only wishes to combine with itself, and it strives to overcome non-uniformity, well, we have now a little particle that's not uniform. It has energy and a little bit of mass. So, of course, it can't tolerate that. It wishes to combine with itself, so it's looking for more energy, another source of energy, to replenish that quanta that was lost. And the only thing that it has to look to is another particle, another energetic particle that shows up in the neighborhood. And of course, the other particle that shows up in the, on the same street corner, well, it has the same problem. See, it's looking to replace some of its energy. And well, the two get together and now form a new particle that has more energy, all right, but it still has some mass. And then, as of course, the population of neutrinos is incalculable. Even there are trillions to the square millimeter. But anyway, that would mean that if we were trying to draw a chart of the population of the universe in terms of neutrinos, why, we would have a very, very wide set of extremes. And it's these extremes, the low, the high, and all the combinations in between, that in the material universe give us the difference between ethereal gases, normal gases, ethereal fluids, that is, volatile ones that evaporate most quickly, or denser ones like water that stick around for a while, and material objects, soft, in various degrees of softness and hardness. So we have the entire sweep of diversity. Now let's think about the soulic diversity and the sweep there. We know that the progeny of any race inherits characteristics from its parents, the genetic input of mom and dad. Well, we know that it isn't a straight line. It's rarely ever, if ever, equal. So there's a tendency to be a little bit more like mom, or to inherit some of the stronger characteristics of dad. And if we can safely say that in general, if two people who are biased toward the spiritual and not very much to the material or to the animal get together, their children are likely to be equally biased in favor of the spiritual sensibility. Fact. But birds of a feather do flock together, and in this true representation of random selection, then there are others who might be a little more worldly than they are spiritual, and two of those get together, and the progeny have a tendency to be more old Adam, more worldly, more material. And this is the gateway to temptation. This is the original sin. A baby crawling around on the floor. Do you think he's looking inward for guidance? Hell no. He is discovering the reality of the world and all its appearances. Only later will he find out that all that glitters is not gold, and things are seldom what they appear to be. So anyway, that would explain how the Creator seems to tolerate, on the one hand, loving, saintly creatures, human beings who just exude love and brotherhood and kindness and generosity. And at the other end of the scale, the other extreme, we have warmongers, serial killers, narcissistic parasites who feed off everyone that they come into contact with. Selfish, self-centered, completely lacking in any guilt or remorse, in any, even the slightest shred of empathy. Animals, in other words. And there are animals among us. I don't know if you've ever realized or recognized that there are people in the earth who exhibit caricature resemblances to lower animals. And this is not to impugn them. There's a reason for it, and it has to do with the message that our Lord's meant us to keep in mind for all time and to never, never forget. But we forgot. We paid no attention. And therefore, the world we see around us today, this is the inheritance that we have bequeathed ourselves through greed, selfishness, and stupidity. And the message is actually the message that they intended for us to always remember, to never forget, an injunction that we were never to violate, was embodied in a monument, the last surviving of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Great Pyramid of Giza. And the next video is all about it. it will answer a lot of questions. So, but in the meantime, keep those remarks and I like praise too. I mean, you can do that too, and don't forget to tell your friends that Crazy George is still crazy after all these years. Well, that I'm finally coming out into the open. In fact, over the past 40 years, very few people have ever realized what I've been doing in camera. So it's this is kind of a coming out party, and I'm fulfilling my destiny, I guess you might say. I'm just carrying the message that I was sent to convey. Believe it or not. Maybe it's all wrong, but I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to assume that, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to do, and I do enjoy the sense of unburdening, because I've been carrying this stuff around for a long, long time, and it feels good to just put it out there, like that tree, putting out its spores, and let the winds of creation carry them wherever they might go. So, thank you for stopping by. Again, I don't know what you see when you enter my channel, if there's a like button there. If you like it, hit the button. Of course, that's up to you. And tell your friends about it. And keep the comments coming. I enjoy them. And the criticisms. Keep me honest. Make me do my job. And we'll all benefit from it. So until next time, thank you for stopping by. Have the best day ever. Be happy. Don't worry. We're going to win. Everything will be all right. But we all have to get together and strive toward it. It isn't going to happen by itself. Until then, so long.